Yasodananda Rajana Rajana Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jai Punjabi Hari Jai Punjabi Hari
Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jai Gauranitai 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 Jai Gauranitai Srila Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraya Nastapreshu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Vaibhati Naistiki. For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother of Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavad, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to practically nil, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymns, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Lord Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan, text number 20. Hey, please repeat. Stigda Smita Valokena Stigda Smita Valokena Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Charitrena Navajena Charitrena Navadyena Shri Niketana Chatmana Shri Niketana Chatmana Stigda Smita Valokena Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Charitrena Navajena Sriniketana Chatmana Stigda Smrita Valokena Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Charitrena Navajena Sriniketana Chatmana Stigda Smrita Valokena Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Charitrena Navajena Sriniketana Chatmana
Snigdha Smita Valokena
Stigda Smitan Valokena
Vacha Piyusha Kalpaya
Vancha Piyusa Kalpaya
Charitrena Navadyena
Charitrena Navajena
Sriniketana Chatmana
Sriniketana Chatmana Stigda Smrita Valokena Vacha Piyusa Kalpaya Charitrena Navajena Sriniketana Chatmana. Okay, word for word. We have a bee that's taken shelter of my thumb here. It's a yellow jacket.
I got stung by something the other morning. Right here in front of you.
He's a little slow because of the change in seasons. Okay.
The mic might be working for you.
Huh?
The microphone.
Is it working now? I can't get anything on it. Is that the on switch now? Just not coming over here. Nothing. In the meantime, we can do the word for word. Okay, I'll try to talk louder. Stigda. Snigda. Gentle. Smrita. Avalokena. By a glance with a sweet smile. Vacha. By words. Piyusa Kalpaya. Compared to nectar. Charitrena. By character. Anavajena. Without flaw. Shri. Fortune. Niketana. Residence. cha,
cha,
and
Atmana,
Atmana, by his transcendental body.
by his transcendental body.
Okay, translation, please repeat. He was there in his transcendental body,
He was there in his transcendental body,
the resident of the goddess of fortune,
the resident of the goddess of fortune,
with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face,
with his usual and gentle, sweetly smiling face,
his nectarine words and his faultless character.
his nectarine words and his faultless character.
Okay, I'll repeat it. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarine words, and his faultless character. Talking about the personality of Godhead at home in the city of Dwarka. Okay, Srila Prabhupada's Divine Purport. In the previous verse, in the previous verse, it is described that Lord Krishna, being situated in the truths of the Sankhya philosophy, is detached from all kinds of matter. In the present verse, it is described that he is the residence of the goddess of fortune. These two things are not at all contradictory. Lord Krishna is detached from the variegatedness of the inferior nature, but he is eternal, blissful enjoyment of the spiritual nature, or his internal potency, but he is an eternal, blissful enjoyment of the spiritual nature, or his internal potency. One who has a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand this distinction between the external and internal potencies. In Bhagavad Gita, the internal potency is described as Paraprakriti. In the Vishnu Purana also, the internal potency of Vishnu is described as Parashakti. The Lord is never detached from the association of Parashakti. This Parashakti and her manifestations are described in the Brahma Samhita, text 37. Is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavi. The Lord is eternally joyful and cognizant, and the taste derived from 6 transcendental bliss. Negation of the variegatedness of the inferior energy does not necessitate negation of the positive transcendental bliss of the spiritual world. Therefore, the Lord's gentleness, his smile, his character, and everything related to him are all transcendental. Such manifestations of the internal potency are the reality, of which the material shadow is only a temporary representation, from which everyone with proper knowledge must be detached. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 20th sloka, 3rd chapter, the Lord's pastimes out of Vrindavan, Canto 3. Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Digda smrita balokena vajja piyusha kalpaya charitrena navajena sriniketana chatmana. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarine words, and his faultless character. Jai Bhagavan Shri Krishna ki, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. I welcome my humble obeisances unto the Lord his feet of his divine grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, by whose grace we can all speak upon the Srimad Bhagavatam in a correct and proper way. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, very interesting. This is the most important thing we need to understand. Certainly, when we come to Krishna consciousness from the material modes of nature, we generally understand, or we are immediately taught, that we have to relinquish or renounce our material attachments, gambling, illicit sexual connection, eating of meat and drinking of intoxicants. All these things have to be put aside, as well as association with persons who live that way. One becomes a renouncer of the material nature. This is the epitome of material nature. This is what goes on in that nature. Children are taught from the time they're very young to enjoy the world. But besides their diet, they don't take part until they reach the age of puberty in some sort of sexual activity. And usually, whatever their family habit is, they may consume intoxication at various ages. And gaming or gambling is also an intricate part of that association. Generally within the home, people or children, they see their parents, their relatives, their parents' friends, completely immersed in the world of competition, especially betting on sports events, or certainly counting on investments to make money quickly. These things are very common, and people learn about them from the time they're young. This is the way people live. But the Krishna consciousness movement appears on the scene and tells people those things are just temporary, and states it very factually, because they are temporary, that everyone has to die. So why, be attached to these things? These things are going to cause you pain, because you can't take them with you. All that money you may make, all the money you may lose, you can't take that hankering for money. And you may take the hankering, but then where will that bring you? According to spiritual teachings, that hankering just brings you back into the world of competition to acquire material wealth, which cannot stay with us when we die. We have to come back for it. But how we come back depends on how good or bad we have been. combination of both of them. That's the karma we attain. And just like in this world, I do certain things and I get certain reactions. So similarly, at the time of death, I get a reaction to my life's activities and I have to come back. So I may be possessed of so much desire for wealth, material wealth, that I have to come back and compete in the world of materialistic people to achieve wealth. Or I may be so addicted to intoxication that I may have to take birth where there's plenty of it, or in a species whereby people are always, or the species is always intoxicated in some form or another. Or I may be so addicted to sexual activity that I may have to take birth in a creature who has very powerful sexual organs and who enjoys that way all the time without any inhibitions. You know, it's part of their nature. There's nothing wrong about it. They don't get any bad reactions for it. And that's what their life is meant for, living like that, like the monkeys. But the human life is not meant for just culturing this type of animal type of nature. It's actually the brain, besides being able to facilitate the rest of the body, is meant for understanding what lies beyond matter, or what lies beyond this world. How can we bring an end to the miseries of this world? A world where we all have to grow old, we have disease. In this day and time, people have disease throughout life. So we have to cope with disease, we have to cope with immaturity and becoming mature, and we have to cope with growing old, where it all comes to an end. Everything that I've done soon comes to an end, and I'm going to have to really pass it on because I'm getting ready to leave the world, and I'm not 100% sure what I've cultivated for my next life unless I have been listening to some spiritual authorities or authorities that understand what lies beyond this world. I go to school and I learn academics from different teachers who have attained certification in some universities in order to teach. So I learn from some authorities. I go on to some college where I take on some dharma, whether it be engineering or retail, marketing or athletics or teaching myself, some sort of dharma, and I'm taught on a level whereby I can actually carry out that occupation. But there's no one there teaching us about the self beyond this world. Where does the self go beyond this world? They separate it, at least in this country, they separate it from the academic education, unless one's in some sort of parochial school, then it becomes mixed. Just like, at our Gurukula, we teach these things along with the academics. So there may be different religious views, but ultimately they're saying basically the same thing, that the self goes on at the time of death, that the self is accountable to the laws of God, and that the human life is meant for reviving this relationship with God so we can live with Him and His spiritual kingdom, that there's a superior kingdom to this material world. So the main point in this verse is that renunciation of the material world does not mean renunciation of my self-interest, my eternal self-interest, that I am an eternal being, and that self, that being, has a life whereby he is very attached and very absorbed and enjoying to his fullest capacity. And by acquiring that information, which consists of an understanding of God, the super self, and our individual self, and our relationship of bhakti yoga or devotional service, by acquiring knowledge of that, I can enter into that consciousness. I can enter into that mentality. I can utilize my body and mind and senses to serve that being rather than just serving the nation I appeared in this world, the community I appeared within in this world, the family I appeared amongst in this world. Rather than just serving them and serving this material body with the different habits that it developed from eating and trying to enjoy the world, I can put aside the attachment to the material world and take up the attachment to the spiritual world. It just requires initially some attraction and development of faith. If I don't have any faith in it, then naturally I'm not going to be very inclined to continue to enjoy in that way, renouncing my material enjoyment. But by developing some faith, some vision, some knowledge, some affection for the Supreme Lord, then it all becomes possible. So Krishna showed while here how much he enjoys his world, whether it be in Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwarka. Krishna was the supreme enjoyer, and nothing could stop him from enjoying the spiritual nature. You know, even people found fault. The things that we can't do in the material world, Krishna could do in the spiritual world. And people would find fault. Look, he's disobeying the laws of the world. But Krishna is not a part of this world. He's a part of the spiritual world. So consequently, Krishna could call the gopis to play with him at night. And the gopis could go. Whereas in this world, not anyone, including Lord Brahma, can go romance all the neighborhood's girls and take them to some secluded place and have a good time. It's against the law. You know, he would be arrested or he would be held accountable. The parents would be angry. And, you know, it will be questionable what kind of law that is. But Krishna, in the spiritual world, he can enjoy to his fullest capacity with his devotees. And there are many, many, many devotees, just like there are many, many different types of people in the material world. There's many different types of devotees, people in the spiritual world. And, you know, some of those people enjoy with Krishna in a conjugal relationship. Not just one or two, but many, many, many. You can't even count them. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the Supreme Lord has the capacity to enjoy unlimitedly like that with his devotees who possess that rasa or that relationship with him. After all, they all come from him. They're all his parts and parcels. And that's their eternal rasa or relation with him. Just like there are devotees that have a relation of parental affection. Many aunts and uncles and older people, and especially his parents. They enjoy a relationship with God like that. That's their eternal life. They can do that 24/7, 365 days a year, eternally, they are enjoying with Krishna. And the same for friends, different types of friends, older and younger. And the same for different types of servants, very confidential servants, and very intimate servants, and very ordinary type of servants who just enjoy folding Krishna's clothes or sweeping Krishna's doorway. Some way they do Krishna's laundry maybe. And they take pleasure in their life in the spiritual world serving Krishna like that. And then, you have all the trees and the animals and the grass. They're all conscious and they're all serving Krishna the way they want to serve Krishna, with a great awe and veneration. They like enjoying, seeing Krishna enjoy with all of his devotees. That goes on in the spiritual world. There's nothing wrong with that. Krishna comes here and shows us, hey, you can enjoy in the spiritual world. You don't have to just give up things in the material world and not have any fulfillment in life, or just try to be nothing, or just try to be impersonal. Like, all that's Maya, it's just illusion, it's not real, and what is real is somehow ever very impersonal, or very voidistic. We just somehow ever have a consciousness of nothingness. How is that satisfying? Some people propagate knowledge like that as though that was real knowledge. It may be knowledge that this world is illusion, but it's not knowledge that eternal life is nothingness, or simply impersonal. There's no personality, no personal activities, no personal desire. Everything is this impersonal type of being, where we just have some sort of pervasive consciousness of just a brahmananda, some sort of pleasure coming from just being light rather than nothingness. That's kind of insufficient to most people. Most people have a hard time giving up their material enjoyment to obtain something that's so obscure, or maybe even ridiculous in people's minds. Nothingness? I want to give this up to become nothing? Or I want to give up my personal relationships to become something with no personality, individual personality? I'm just some sort of all-pervasive light. And then they try to make it sound good by saying, yeah, but you're God. You get to incarnate and do things in the material world because you're really God. Well, our disciplic succession, our school of thought, our teachers would challenge that if you're really God, then how come you have forgotten, and how come you have to suffer misery? We know God, and God never has to suffer misery, and he never forgets. So how are you God, that you've been placed into this Maya? How can God be put into a Maya and he can't do what he wants anymore? It's like John can't do what he wants. If he tries to do what he wants, he may be put in jail. If he tries to do what he wants, his body may not have the facility to do it. He may want to be the president, but he can't be the president. He may want to go spend a few $100,000, but he can't because he doesn't possess it. So we can't do what we want. We're bound by our karma, by what we've attained. And we can't get away from it. We're just going to get what we're going to get next week, and we're going to get what we're going to get next year, and we're going to get what we're going to get at the end of our life. And, we're really not the controller of it. We may try to make it good by being good ourselves. That involves some of the spiritual, religious understanding that there is some control of karma, and if you're good, you get good, and if you're bad, you get bad. Very basic, elementary theology. But, we may try to control that in order to get a better life in our next life, because this life was so inefficient. Too much bad karma. Let me be good and get some good karma. Let me get some wealth in life, some education in life, some health and beauty and strength and power. And yet some detachment from the whole mess, where I'm not really bothered by other people's bad karma. And I can tell them, be good, you'll get good karma. And I can be happy that I possess such karma. I can be peaceful in mind. No, that's again, elementary. One has to live in the material world for that again and again and again. Those people die too with good karma. And then, they're going to get whatever their karma is in the next life. Maybe because they had so much good karma, but they were never charitable. They didn't give anybody anything. All they did was ever take. Then what is going to be their karma in the next life? So, Krishna comes to show that there is spiritual life, and that is our real self. Our real self is eternal spiritual being, not a material being. Renunciation means to give up the material life. That material life, here I am, Joe Blow, I like the New York Yankees. And and I'm attached to Governor Cuomo, or I'm attached to Governor Edwards. I'm attached to the governance of my state, of my nation, of my world. I'm attached to my family. All those things are just temporary. That wasn't your government, your country, your family in your previous life. And it won't be in your future life. So what is our eternal life? That's in the spiritual realm. Whether it be in Krishna's realm, Rama's realm, Vishnu's realm. Vishnu's realm's unlimited. So many planets to serve Vishnu in. Different relationships the devotees have with God. Just like we have to have a relationship with our family in this world, our government in this world, our community in this world. We have to have a relationship with God in the spiritual world. In this world, God is, He's worshipped in the human kingdom. And that separates the humans from the animals. At least amongst most humans still. There comes a point to where God is no longer worshipped in the dark age. But that's very temporary. Most of the ages God is worshipped because human beings have the opportunity to leave this world forever and not have to live in the cycle of birth and death. Sometimes a gorilla, sometimes a chimpanzee, sometimes a tiger, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod. But always having to continue to repeat the cycle of birth and death. We're meant, forgetting that eternal body. We're not meant to have a body that breaks down. We're meant to have a body that's eternal, that's full of bliss, where whatever the mind wants, the mind can attain. That the senses follow the mind. The senses are powerful and they're full of energy. Krishna's senses, they can do whatever the other sense can do. The ears can see, somehow ever, the different parts of the body can talk. It's incomprehensible to us, these types of senses that are completely interchangeable. We're used to one sense doing one thing. But in spiritual bodies, they can all do everything. And they can all move at the speed of the mind. Whatever they want, they can attain. It's incomprehensible to us, the greatness of those bodies. But that's the type of body we are meant to have. We're a spiritual self. But to get that spiritual body, I have to be able to use it correctly. And to use it correctly, I have to be able to live in harmony with the Supreme Being. Otherwise, I cannot possess such a body. When I love Krishna, then I can have a body like Krishna, a spiritual body. But if I don't love Krishna, I can't have that spiritual body because beings who don't love God are not allowed in God's world. It's just not allowed a type of demoniac or a type of competition where God has some competitor who has some envious thoughts, some sort of evil motive, something like that. That's only in the material realm. That type of mentality has its space. It's called the material realm. In the spiritual realm, everyone is a loving devotee of Krishna, and Krishna gives everybody a body like his. But in the material realm, it's all governed by the law of karma. Everything is very fair. Everyone gets what they deserve. We may be a Brahma, we may be an Indra, we may be a very prominent person in this world, or we may be just an ordinary person in this world, or we may be a fish, we may be a cat, we may be an amoeba, a worm, a snake, a reptile. All these things, the soul can be because the soul's an eternal living being. But we're not meant to live in the material world. And it's only a matter of giving up our envy of Krishna. Don't envy the person who's supreme, but be his devotee. It's not me who's supreme, or John who's supreme, or Abhi who's supreme, or Abai. Is it Abai or Abhi or?
Avi.
It's Abhi, not Aniruddha. Aniruddha is your brother, you're Abhi. Abhimanyu. Okay? Or Lakshmi Nrsimha. None of us are supreme, we're all Das. We're the servants of the Supreme. That's our real position. Eternally the servant of the Supreme. So why do we envy our Supreme Lord? No, devotees don't envy their Supreme Lord, they love their Supreme Lord. It's only the demon who envies the Supreme Lord. They may want to be him. They may want to compete with him. They don't like the way he's managing things. Isn't that the case? A lot of people don't like the way the government's being managed. And you almost have a 50-50 split. The Republicans don't like the way the Democrats manage it. The Democrats don't like the way the Republicans manage it. And they fight with one another politically to be supreme. So, we're not meant to do that to God. God gives us our realm. All right, so you want to do that, go there, do that. Be that, do what you can. But it's all governed by the laws of karma, and it's very fair. When demons get a benediction, they get a benediction. Do they use it right? Well, that's up to them. Did Ravana use his benedictions right? Did Hiranyakashipu use his benedictions right? They were great demons. Did they use their benedictions right? Did they use it for the welfare of the world? So everything's governed properly and fairly, but it's not our eternal home. When we want to give up living in the material world, we can. And we can go back to the spiritual world. And we have to stop now because I'm 2 or 3 minutes over. So any questions before we take off for the day? So we give up the material, Krishna even says it in his Gita, by getting a better taste. That means we have to get a better taste. That's why devotees enjoy the Sankirtan movement. That's why we develop a taste and we enjoy the Harinam. We enjoy the Prasada. We enjoy Krishna's food. No, we don't eat crawfish anymore. We enjoy Krishna's food. We enjoy Krishna's music. We don't enjoy all the how many what do they call it? Jarigan? Not Jarigan. Anyway, different styles of music. Yeah, John.
Say, you mentioned crawfish. Say, I've never eaten crawfish before. Well, you say maybe a devotee in the past, maybe I've eaten crawfish. Should I deny the privilege of maybe wanting to know what it tastes like? What would Prabhupada say about that?
Well, he would say, that's your choice, that's your freedom, but I'm telling you that it's bad karma.
Okay.
So you know who you're going to listen to. You're going to have faith in your spiritual master, or you're going to have faith in your taste.
It's almost
To
like
just do whatever you want. There's so many things you haven't done in this lifetime. But at one time you were a crawfish.
it's like
At one time you were maybe a crawfish eater.
It's like Christopher Columbus. He crossed the ocean. Do we have to do it again?
Well, how many times people have crossed the ocean since he crossed it? And there were people who crossed it before he crossed it. You know, the history is written by those who write it. So the Spanish and the Western nations, you know, gave him all kinds of fame. And yet he's being stripped of that today. They've taken away Columbus Day and they've turned it into Indigenous People Day. Because Columbus, how great of a man was he? He came here and he enslaved all these people. He destroyed their civilization. You know, he treated them in a very unethical, demoniac way. So how great is Mr. Columbus?
Well, you take a look at history. Even if we look at the fact of do we have to do it again, even if we don't have to do it again, it's because just based on what we see in the books and what we do, and if he eats crawfish, why do I have to be crawfish? But it's a little twisted too. Sometimes I think about
You don't want to twist it. You want to learn to somehow listen and seriously think about the question and ask it and get an answer. But then you got to dwell upon and take advantage of it. Again, it becomes a thing of, are you going to have faith in your spiritual authorities? Or are you going to have faith just in your own mind?
But I see the commies twisted because.
Commies twisted because commie means that they want to just enjoy the world.
But the funniest joke sometimes I humor myself with is Christopher Columbus, they say, discovered America, but why do we name it after America Vespucci? America. It seems like we got the name from him. You know, it's just funny. It's just hilarious. I get a big kick out of it.
So he was the guy mapping it, and I think this for the Spanish, maybe for the English, but then they just started calling it America after him. But I mean, I think, you know, it had other names. The Indians never called it America. So, you know, again, these are just things in a temporary world. You know, better if you want to live, you know, beyond your body, then we have to develop, you know, a taste for spiritual life. And, you know, in spiritual life, the sages and saints and devotees and yogis, they don't eat crawfish. You know, they eat the food that's offered to the deity of the Lord in the temple.
But the point I'm trying to make is I think sometimes, in my opinion, people could lose faith because of the inconsistency with how we see history.
Yeah, but see, we follow the spiritual master, and we don't follow your opinion. So you have to learn that you have a right to your opinion, but it's your opinion who's got you in the material world.
Yeah.
If you want to get out, you know, you're going to have to change your opinion to have some faith in the spiritual master.
Yeah.
Without faith in the spiritual master, we can't get out. You know, because the spiritual master knows what lies beyond, and he can bless the disciple. But if this disciple keeps making his opinions better than the spiritual master's, the spiritual master's, you know, only going to bless you to try to become a proper devotee that has faith in the spiritual master. If you keep wandering off, then you can't get out. You know, you have to have faith means that, you know, you have to take shelter of his lotus feet and, you know, remain, you know, his disciple. Where, you know, it's not that you lose faith. You may think like that some people may lose faith, but they may not have never had sufficient faith. No, it's usually beginners who lose faith. Whether it's a beginner in this lifetime or, you know, it's possible anyone can lose faith. Faith certainly there's a possibility there. But that's why it's stressed that we have to remain faithful to our spiritual master. And most of the examples are examples of faithfulness. But, you know, they show that you know, one can lose faith, and it's usually by wandering off to get a taste of the material world. Like in the example of Ajamil, you know, he had to go off and experience life with prostitutes. And that took him away. You know, he lost faith in his spiritual regime, his spiritual teachings that he had learned. That, you know, one shouldn't associate with prostitutes, and instead he had to taste it, and he almost ruined his life. You know, he was only saved at the end because he happened to remember Narayan. So, you know, you have to be very careful. You may wander off, and you may become a Louisiana Cajun who always eats crawfish. You know, it happens all the time, you know, to neophyte devotees. You know, they wander off. You know, to become a real devotee is not an easy thing. It requires discipline. You know, you have to learn to have faith in your guru and your spiritual master. Okay, we got to stop. It's getting too late. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.